Good day, grade 9s, and wishing you warm greetings and welcome to our WorksheetCloud grade 9 Natural Sciences lesson. To all you awesome grade 9s that have joined me today, I know we're going to have lots of fun together today. If you have a question during the lesson, please will you send an email with your question to grade9@worksheetcloud.com. My name is Mrs. Ernston, and I am the WorksheetCloud Grade 9 Natural Sciences teacher. For those of you that are new to the lesson, please make sure that you have some paper and a pen or pencil and something to write with so that you can write down everything that we do in today's lesson. It will help you answer the worksheets that are associated with this lesson, and it is also good to keep a record of the work that we do today. So I would like you to have a look at each of these pictures. And as we go through them, I want you to see and think about how they could each be related. So here we have a blue bottle. Here we have a bee. Here we have a picture with someone with plaque on their teeth. Here we have an ant. Here we have Gaviscon. It's known as an antacid, and here we have some fertilizer. Now, in order for you to figure out what the main topic is of this page and how all these things are linked together, you're going to have to stay with me right till the end of the lesson. But I wonder if as we work through the lesson, you are able to figure out the relationship between each of these things. So to start off, our lesson is going to cover the work involving acids, bases, pH, and neutralization. Firstly, we're going to have a look at what is the reaction between an acid and a base called. Then, what happens to the pH when an acid and a base are mixed? Does the reaction between an acid and a base always give a neutral mixture? So in other words, will the mixture always be a pH 7? And what factors will determine the final pH of the solution when an acid and a base are mixed together? I wonder if any of you have ever tried this at home. Well, if you haven't, I hope that you go and give it a try directly after this lesson. So, go and make yourself a cup of tea. No milk, no sugar. Just put the tea bag or the tea leaves into the cup and pour in the boiling water. Let the tea strain, then remove the tea bag, and you will have plain tea. It doesn't matter what type of tea you use. Then you can go and get some lemon juice. It doesn't have to be from a fresh lemon. Hopefully somewhere around the house you have some bottled lemon juice. And I want you to slowly add drop by drop or squirt by squirt of lemon juice to your cup of tea. And I want you to see what happens to the color of the tea. So if you want to pause the video and go off and try this experiment and come back, please do. I'll wait for you. But I am going to go through the results in a moment, and I don't want to spoil it for you. So here we have a cup of brewed tea. Notice the color. It's quite a dark brown color. And here we have a cup of tea that we have added lemon juice to. So that lemon juice has changed the color of tea. So linking to the content of this lesson, I wonder what reaction is happening here. I wonder what's the acid. I wonder what's the base. I really wonder what's happening in this cup of tea. So now I've got something else for you to think about. and that will be what will happen when I add vinegar to a solution of sodium bicarbonate of soda. So bicarbonate of soda is also known as baking soda, and you can take a little bit of this baking soda and add it to some water so that you get a bicarb solution, and then I wonder what will happen to that solution when you add vinegar. So first, I would like you to test your process skills and how well you can remember hypothesis designing. So I would like you to write a hypothesis for this reaction. Remember that a hypothesis must be a statement. It's not allowed to be a question. You must use good scientific language. It needs to include your independent variable or your input, and it needs to include your dependent variable or your output. So in this experiment, we will be having a look at whether or not vinegar will change the pH of a bicarbonate of soda solution. So our dependent variable or our output is going to be a change in color, or it is going to be a change in pH. Our independent variable is going to be the different spoons of sodium bicarb that we use, or the vinegar that we use. So we can start out and we can measure the pH of a solution of baking soda. And we can use this using a variety of indicators. For those of you that have only joined us today, our previous lesson was all about indicators. So please head on over to that lesson and go and have a look. So I know that you may not have universal indicator paper at home, but you can make your own indicator using beetroot juice, but that's going to be in one of our future lessons. But we can use an indicator to confirm whether or not something is acid or basic. So I wonder what pH range you expect the bicarbonate of soda to fall into. Well, if we have a look at this pH scale that we've seen in previous lessons, baking soda is a pH of 9 and water is a pH of 7, which means that if we make a solution of bicarbonate of soda, which means we're mixing baking soda with distilled water, we're going to be looking at something in the pH range of 7 to 9. And if we have a look at vinegar, vinegar is also known as acetic acid. So we know that it's not going to be nearly as dangerous as a pH 1, which is gastric acid, but it is definitely going to be in the acidic pH range, because we know that vinegar is also known as acetic acid. So when we have a look at this experiment, we are seeing what happens when we mix an acid with a base. So we will add vinegar to the baking soda solution in small portions, and we will measure the pH each portion has as it's been added. So you can try this at home, but you will definitely need some type of indicator solution. So what changes do you expect to observe? Do you think that the pH is going to increase, decrease, or stay the same? I think that the pH will decrease. Because if we are starting out with a baking soda, which is a base, and we are adding more acid, I'm thinking that the pH will decrease. If you would like to try an experiment at home, see if you've got these materials at home, and if you don't, please will you ask your parents or your guardians to get it for you. Remember, when you do these experiments at home, I really would like for an adult to supervise you, and remember to clean up as you go. So you'll need baking soda or bicarbonate of soda, vinegar, water, a glass beaker or a glass jar or a container, or even just a plastic yogurt tub or measuring cup should be fine. And then it is ideal to have universal indicator paper that you've cut into strips. But if you don't have that, why don't you go and make yourself some homemade indicator, like beetroot juice or red cabbage juice. It will help if you have a piece of white paper handy and a teaspoon. So here are the instructions for carrying out the method. I'll read through it with you and try and answer any queries that I think you may have. So initially you need to make some universal indicator paper, or you'll need to make a home-based acid-base indicator. But start out by placing 1 teaspoon of baking soda into a container. And then you're going to add approximately 10 spoons of water. Use a teaspoon to stir the solution until all the baking soda has dissolved. And that is going to be known as your test solution. And then you're going to take 1 drop of this test solution and test it with the indicator. And you can get 1 drop either by using a little drop on a teaspoon or a straw, or I know you'll make a plan. Then I want you to compare the color with the color guide or with the indicator that you have made and try and see if you are able to record the pH. Then I want you to add 1 teaspoon of vinegar to the solution. Stir gently and then test this using your universal indicator paper or the indicator that you've sourced at home. Then I want you to try and determine what the pH would that be. Now I want you to repeat steps 6 and 7 until you get to a pH of round about 7. So when you have done this, we can also look at some skills that we've learned in the last lessons. So a very good skill to follow when doing a scientific investigation is to record your results in a table. So I've given you an example here of what a table may look like. I think for your experiment you may need to add a few more rows, because I'm sure you're going to be adding quite a few teaspoons of vinegar to your bicarb solution until it reaches a neutral pH. Then please will you also remember when doing a table that your table must have a heading. You must have these grid lines, and these grid lines must be drawn with a ruler, so it must be nice and neat and straight. And in doing the grid lines, that will mean that your table has got rows and columns. So in this table we have got column headings, and please remember to add the units in. So our independent variable is going to be the number of teaspoons of vinegar added, because we're going to start off by adding 1 teaspoon, then 2 teaspoons, 3 teaspoons, 4 teaspoons. I'd also like you to record the color of your indicator and, if possible, the pH. So please remember that you need to include your independent and dependent variable in this table. A reminder that the dependent variable are the results you are recording. So it's either going to be the color of the indicator that you are using, and if possible, you can match that with a pH. And then make sure that your data table is complete. Now, once you've done that, another great skill to learn is graphing skills. So once you've carried out this experiment, I think it's also a really good idea to try and plot your results on a graph. So remember that every graph needs a heading, and in that heading you need to include your independent and dependent variable. When we do a graph, we put the independent variable on the horizontal axis here, and we put the dependent variable on the vertical axis. So the way you can remember that is the dependent variable are the results that we are recording. You do need a title and units for both your axes. You must try and start your axes at 0. Remember to use the correct numerical scale and make your graph as big as possible, and ensure that you plot your points correctly. So it's a really good idea for you to go and practice these skills. So what happened to the pH of the mixture every time you added more vinegar to the baking soda? And I wonder if you are able to tell me why did this happen? So what conclusions can be made from the results of your investigation? So if we have a look at the pH of the mixture dropped every time we added more vinegar to the baking soda solution. So why did this happen? So when an acid and a base are mixed in the right amounts, they will neutralize each other. So that means together, the acid and the base will change into something that is neither an acid nor a base. So essentially, the acid loses its acidity and the base loses its basicity. So you have learned that acids and bases neutralize each other. So if we add a base to an acid, the pH of the resulting solution will increase because the acid is going to lose some of its potency. So if we start out with an acid and we add more base and more base and more base and more base, we will land up reaching pH 7. So that is why we are saying that the pH will increase. You've also learned that acids and bases will neutralize each other, which means that if we add an acid to a base, the opposite is going to happen. The pH is going to decrease. So if we start out with a base and we add more acid and add more acid and add more acid, our pH is going to decrease until we get to pH 7. So what do you think will happen when we mix an acid with a base? So what do you think will happen if I take pool acid and I add drain cleaner? An acid plus an alkali, or an acid plus a base, gives us a salt and water. Now, it's not always necessarily a table salt. I just put this image in as an image that goes with this lesson. So the salt is not always sodium chloride. The salt that is made is going to depend on the acid and the base that are reacting. So in essence, we learnt about a neutralization reaction today, that an acid plus a base reacts to give us a salt plus water. So I wonder if you are able to link these pictures up together. So fertilizers are generally alkali, and fertilizers will be added to acidic soil to create the right pH for the crops or plants to grow. This here is Gaviscon. Gaviscon is very similar to Eno's or Rennie's tablets. When you are suffering from heartburn, which is like an acid reflux, which means the acid in your stomach is moving up into your esophagus and it's creating a burning sensation, you're going to have some of this Gaviscon. And this is an alkali, or your Rennie's tablets are alkali. So if we take this alkali liquid and we mix it with your acid in your stomach, it should neutralize it and stop the burning. Plaque buildup in your mouth can be caused by a lot of acidity in the foods that you are eating, and if you do not brush your teeth, there is bacteria that live in your mouth, and this bacteria produce an acid type of substance that eats away at your teeth, and that's why you will notice the toothpaste is also slightly basic. I'm not too sure how many of you have been stung by a bee, but that burning sensation is also because of an acid in the chemicals that you find in the sting of a bee. And the same with an ant. If any of you have been bitten by an ant before, that stinging sensation is from formic acid that the ant produces when it bites you. And similarly, if you've ever been stung by a bluebottle. So one of the remedies in each of these cases is to add a medicine or an ointment that will neutralize these reactions. So I've got a little challenge for you now. Why don't you pause the video and set the timer for 2 minutes and see how many words can you make from the word neutralization. I'm not going to put any rules in place, but if you want to put some rules in place, you can. But why don't you give it a go and see how many creative, interesting words you can make. And I wonder who can make the longest word. Well, that was a bit of fun. I wonder how many words you got in the 2 lessons. And I wonder who got the longest word. Are you able to write a short paragraph where you are able to make a summary of everything that you have learned this lesson? I think doing this activity will be really beneficial because it will summarize everything that you can remember today. So what have you learned today? Let's do a 3, 2, 1 activity. So if you need to pause the video along the way, please do. So I would like you to write down 3 things you discovered today. I would like you to write down 2 interesting facts or 2 interesting details you can remember from today's lesson that you never learned beforehand. And then lastly, do you have any questions? I'm sure you'll be able to go and find the answer to this question, but if you can't and there's anything I covered today and you have any questions about anything that maybe you don't understand in today's lesson, please will you remember to email any questions that you may have to grade9@worksheetcloud.com and we will get back to you as soon as possible with the answer. So grade 9s, this lesson wouldn't be possible with all you awesome grade 9s out there watching. So thank you so much for taking the time and making the effort to join us today. And most of all, I would like to thank WorksheetCloud for bringing you the lesson today. So goodbye for now, grade 9s. Looking forward to seeing you next lesson. Bye.